Good afternoon, colleagues. Please take your seats. We'll start at 7 p.m. sharp. Good afternoon. I'm happy to welcome those who've managed to make it to this wonderful hall to take part in our 17th general meeting, the session of the association ACI Russia, our public organization, non-profit organization that brings together financial market professionals. I'll briefly walk you through our agenda. We have a hybrid format, both offline and online. We have broadcast in 2 languages. We have simultaneous interpretation. So those of you who would like to listen to interpretation from English into Russian, you can pick up the headsets at the entrance. So our key session will feature international presence. We'll be greeted by the chairman of the board of ACI FMA, Bruno Langfritz. So he'll be the first keynote speaker, and I hope he's online. Then we'll have the members of the Global FX Committee representatives, and also Valery, Lyakh, head of the Bank of Russia's Department for Counterfeiting Misconduct. And then we'll have a session on FX and money markets. We'll have Igor, Marich, Sergey, and Senina, and myself. To make sure we have 2 exciting panels, I call on you to pay attention to the slide on the 2 screens. Please go to slides.com and join the event number 180236. This could make our session even more interactive. You can use that platform to put questions to the speakers. We will put them up on the screen as they emerge, as we see them on the platform. I also have some questions for our audience, both our online and offline audience. And we would see the replies on the screens, and I hope that both the questions and the answers would be interesting and insightful. So I call on you to go to slido.com, and we'll have a small demo. So the first question for you, just a demo question, a test question. Please make sure you fill in where you're from, which organization you represent. So it's either a bank, which is a market maker in FX, principal, or a bank that services customers, or maybe you represent an exchange or an ECN. Maybe you're a broker, or you're part of a non-financial corporation, or maybe an investment company, or you have a proprietary desk, or you're head of a family office. Or also could have some who represented the education industry or the media. So most of you come from a category that is called Other. Well, I don't really know who are these other. I think we should have also included vendors, those who provide education services, for example. So while you're identifying yourselves, I'd like to give the floor to Bruno Langfritz, chairman of ACI FMA. He's been head of Global ACI for many years now. I'd like to give the floor to him for some welcoming remarks. I hope he could share what's happening at ACI around the world.
Okay, so you can start, but we can't hear you. Just a moment, so we have some technical problems, as I see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's perfect. Yeah, please.
Okay, добрый вечер. Dear Sergey, President of ACI Russia, and dear board members, dear members of ACI Russia, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. I sincerely thank you for the honor to start today. Firstly, I would like to greet all those present and thank personally for the invitation addressed by the Management Board of ACI Russia. It is with great satisfaction that once again I take part in this important meeting which annually brings together the members of ACI Russia. It is very satisfying to participate actively and be closer to the ACI FMA members, considering the challenging times that we are experiencing and that we still live in with the COVID-19 pandemic. I recall that ACI Council meeting was scheduled to take place in Moscow on 2 different occasions, but did not occur due to the confinement measures and pandemic global situation that we are enduring. In fact, we continue to be subject to rules and obligations aimed at protecting public health, but it is pleasing to realize that we are slowly experiencing a return to some normality. I would like to take this opportunity to talk to the broad work that has been developed by ACI globally and the special focus that the association has been dedicated to the representativeness in the scope of financial markets and education. ACI has been keenly attentive to the development taking place in the industry and has actively participated in the production of responses to various public consultations and requests for feedback presented by important stakeholders in financial markets. In this context, I would like to highlight that our committees and working groups, namely the Regulatory Working Group, the Foreign Exchange Committee, the Committee for Professionalism, and the Crypto Working Group, have reviewed several consultations from ESMA. ESMA stands for European Securities and Markets Authorities. As we believe the feedback of our members is important for their analysis of key markets development. Specifically, ACI has provided its view on the possible inclusion of spot FX within the MAR. MAR stands for Market Abuse Regulation, which is applicable in the European Union. On the review report for algorithmic trading in scope of the MiFID II directives and its correspondent MiFIR regulation implemented in the same region. And also on the provisions relating to organized trading facilities under this detailed and exhaustive regulatory package, which entered into force on January 2018. As a member of the market participant group involved, from the start in the concept of the FX Global Code and as an active association that aims to promote the ongoing adherence and implementation of this set of guidelines for good practice in the FX market. ACI continues to cooperate with the Global FX Committee on the development of the code. Therefore, it is only natural that, once again, our committees and working groups joined up to present a response to the request for feedback launched recently by the GFXC on proposed changes to 10 of the Code's 55 principles and to draft disclosures templates. In addition, we have already started the internal work that will result in another ACI response to the latest feedback requested by GFXC related to draft guidance papers for pre-hedging and last look aimed at supporting the revised version of the FX Global Code that should be published this summer. All these references clearly show the detailed and extensive work that has been developed by the association, always in close collaboration with its members, committees and working groups, as we are continuously looking for ACI FMA to represent its members and meet the market needs for a valuable voice of a global association of market professionals. As mentioned earlier, the work carried out in the area of education is impressive and extremely important. I would like to point out the videos that we recently produced by ACI aimed at introducing the association and the Lyakh portal to the wider industry market. We believe that it is important to continually reinvent itself, making and bringing the differences to our community, partners and other stakeholders, and trust that these videos became a great asset for our members and to the financial market community as a whole. Still in the area of education, a lot of work has also been developed and promoted through the realization of several webinars for diverse audiences. These interactive and dynamic events have brought very positive results, namely participants who, consequently to their participation in webinars, decided to take our ACI Online FX Global Code exams and to adhere and to prove that they understood the FX Global Code. Our Lyakh platform continues to be an instrument of great use for the market, and there are countless updates that have been carried out, bringing benefits to its users and stakeholders. We keep adding new entities, and Lyakh keeps being recognized as a valuable tool for attestation and certification on industry codes. For the time being, close to 10 central banks actually are using Lyakh for their own purposes, including the ECB. Just as an example, I would like to mention 2 or 3 important items that represent the much that has been done in this area. An Lyakh demo and presentation to the Moscow Foreign Exchange Joint Standing Committee. Our FMA calendar will soon be included in Lyakh, amongst others content that will be added to the platform in the coming months. Our intensive work around the update of the UK money market code content in Lyakh and how it prepared us for the upcoming update of the FX Global Code content in the platform. Finally, and still within education, the ACI FMS study guide for the dealing certificate, an important project for exam candidates, is being prepared, and we also release a new version of the FX Global Code exam aimed at being ready when the code is updated in the next few months. As you know, and considering our regular communication through the news published in our website and LinkedIn, there are many other goals that ACI FMA has achieved, even in the current challenging scenario. There are also ongoing processes that will have an impact on the association and in the industry, as we are working on several other initiatives that were not mentioned today. You will certainly hear about them very soon, but I must reassure you they will allow ACI to affirm that the association has developed far-reaching tools, projects, and resources that aim to support our esteemed members. That is our objective. Spasiba for your time, and I wish you a good and fruitful General Assembly. And now I give the word back to my esteemed friend, Sergey.
Thank you, Bruno. Прошу поставить мою презентацию.
Please, could we put up the slides on the screen? Formally, I have to make a report. We will not have any voting procedures this time around, but I'd like to share some of the highlights. COVID-19 is still a major disruptor, and initially we wanted to have an international event here. We wanted to have as many international guests as possible, but we still have to limit ourselves to this hybrid format. So what did we do? These are the key areas of focus, in line with the mission, with the charter, with the philosophy of our association. They are still the same. So we are hosting events. We have the ACI Council that meets biannually, and we also have the Moscow FX Committee. We look at household issues and also at some market issues which emerge from time to time, and we're always in contact with the regulator. So that's a joint committee. I'd like to thank Mr. Zablotsky. I hope he will join us. Maybe he'll join us for a cocktail, but I hope he'll also come to listen to the substantive part. So this is a very important part of our mission. We would like to bring in the best international practices to the Russian market. So we call it the Moscow FX Committee in English. We do surveys on the key rates, the key policy rates of the central bank. We continue this tradition, and we are in competition with our media, with our news agencies. We publish these forecasts, and there's a lot of demand for these forecasts. Our association is a platform for networking, and this year we experimented with Clubhouse. It's a new audio media. As you remember, last time we had Ms. Zabotkina, who represents the Central Bank of Russia, and we've been meeting at Clubhouse more regularly. At 6 p.m. Moscow time, we are live on Clubhouse. Well, we missed the one session due to the May holidays in Russia. So we mostly focus on market behavior. We won't discuss it today, but we discuss it every week at 6 p.m. Moscow time on Clubhouse. I call on you to join us. Amazingly simple event. It's very easy to log in, and we have the panels that other conferences would envy. So we do it on a weekly basis. We don't record anything. We just do some press releases, and thanks to privacy, the speakers are much more vocal and straightforward. They log in from trains, from airplanes, from cruise ships. So I believe it's a wonderful innovation. And if the number of the listeners stays the same, we'll continue to do that. So we'll also post our press releases on Telegram, Facebook, and we'll also work on market conventions. And last year, we held the EFX Summit and the 16th session of ACI Russia. It was held in August here. Again, half was online, half was offline. As for our joint standing committee, we will provide the highlights of its operations in the next panel. As for the market conventions, one of the key jobs for us is to make sure that our markets continue to operate on New Year's holidays and on May holidays, which are really long in Russia. And again, please join us on Clubhouse on Friday. One of the decisions that we've taken at our board, ACI board, is to run a contest for certificates, for the global core certificate, for global code, global FX code compliance. So you just need to send us an application electronically, and that's it. You're a candidate. So this is very important to make sure you incorporate these practices in your day-to-day life, to make sure you internalize them. So we need to be part of that global trend, that global process. Our plan is to make sure that Russian participants, members of ACI Russia, those who pass this exam, will be ranked. Those who get top ranking will be recognized with some souvenir. Well, we've announced it's going to be the latest iPhone. Well, okay, you will also have the fuss and buzz and all the glory to yourself, apart from the iPhone. So that'll be the contest. We very much hope there'll be a flood of applications. Otherwise, it will be really difficult to promote this new trend. So it's one thing to read it, and it's quite a different ball game to pass an exam. And you can also train your English, because one of the difficulties of the exam is to read a the situation, the terms of that situation really fast in English. We wanted to translate that into Russian, as we did with the traditional dealing certificate. We haven't found a partner, we haven't found a sponsor yet. So there are any major banks and financial organizations who would like to be recognized in Russia. Please come to us, because we need to sign a contract to make sure that all the right answers remain within a narrow circle. And this is very important, so we'll have to sign an NDA, and we'll have to find a company who would be ready to pay about 20 to 30,000 euros. So this slot is still open. You're welcome. And now please put up the second presentation. So overall, I believe that we need to be a platform for networking between market participants, and I really appreciate those who managed to find 5 minutes to fill in a questionnaire, fill in a survey on what channels of communication are the most popular. We didn't have too many participants, so I call on you to do this survey, maybe after this event. Please use our link to take part in the survey. Now, based on the post-mortem, we'll be able to plan our activities in a better way to bring more value to the market participants. So let's skip this one. I hope that there'll be the same number of online and offline answers afterwards. So what is the value for you from membership in ACI? All of you said that it's all about friendly networking, improving your professionalism, access to education, access to collective expertise, helping you to grow a business at events, talking to regulators, finding jobs. And we regularly post vacancies from one of our partners, AMC. They specialize vacancies. Well, these are mostly for research. Sometimes they also are looking for traders. So we have a private ACI group. You can join us on Telegram, and we post links to our partners to new vacancies. It's all important to benchmark yourself against other people. It's always important to be looking for new hires. So e-newsletters and membership on Facebook group. Well, not that many answers. We'd really like to have more answers. I'll skip this one. And here you can see what channels our participants use. So e-newsletter is somewhere below, but we can safely say that everyone reads that. Telegram is and Clubhouse are somewhere at the top. And Facebook, LinkedIn pages, they're all popular. I'd like to thank Svetlana Shadrina. Svetlana, please wave a hand. That's our social media manager. She runs those pages for your convenience. We've also updated our website. We use our new engine. It might be not perfect in terms of content. We've not been able to move everything. We are now getting feedback. So if you have a negative impression, please send your feedback to us. So people say they are asking for more information. So you would like to get research from experts who will also try to do some ups of or reviews of the news from central bank and other financial organizations. So whatever we do seems to be popular.
A crucial question about how big the membership fee should be. Now it's €35, and it is transferred to the headquarters, head office. Locally, we don't collect any money, and definitely all the money that we collect, we remit to the head office. There is only one brave person and generous person who would like to pay more. If we have more generous spirit people, please let us know, but we try to be as democratic and affordable as possible. The flagship events is the main of them is our summit. It will be held at the Lotte Plaza Hotel in October. I hope you will all attend. Now let's have another polling, another survey among the participants. Let's put it on the screen. So this reminds me of one of the questions of our survey with respect to what channels are most relevant. Next question, please. What info and communication channel for ACI Russia is your best choice and preference? Please respond. While you are answering, I'd like to invite on the stage the participants of our next panel that is dedicated to the global FX code. Most importantly, Valery Lyakh, Director of the Bank of Russia's Department for Countering Misconduct. Dmitry Piskulov, Director, International Projects, FX Market, Moscow Exchange. And we also have online two guests, Stephane Malrait, who has been heading ACI FX committee for quite a while, for many years. He's also head of market structure innovation at ING Bank, and has represented ACI at the global FX committee, and he is an active participant of the deliberations of the WC, of the working group of the European Central Bank. Svante Hedin is another guest of ours, who is a representative of the Scandinavian FX committee. Some of the regional committees have become actually interregional, and Svante sits on the Scandinavian committee, comprising several countries. He's also head of FX and Commodities at SEB Bank. Also on the line we have Senina, who is now the chief manager for interaction with central banks from Refinitiv company. Will you please zoom screen here on this screen?
So can you hear us? Okay, great. So
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me, Sergey?
Yeah, fine. Stephane?
Yes, I can hear you well, loud and clear.
Test your microphone. Hi.
Yes, hello, yes. I can
Oh,
hear you.
yeah, Stephane. Okay, great. So we can start actually our panel. And so the plan is that Valery Lyakh will probably start with some speech regarding what is going on Russian market, so about our mutual work in Moscow FX Joint Standing Committee. And so then we will discuss the latest news about the revision of FX Global Code and all the other matters connected to that. So, Valery, please, now it's your turn. Please start.
Добрый день, коллеги.
Very good day, colleagues. Indeed, it is a pleasure and a privilege to see you, most of you, in person. Safe and sound. Well, We haven't seen each other for a year, but gradual changes, progressive changes have been happening. And with respect to our area of activity, I'm referring to the ethics and the integrity and bona fide conduct. Well, the Bank of Russia has joined the Global Ethics Code, and I would recommend all other market participants to follow suit. We received a request from MFA with respect to whether the regulator would recommend joining the code, acceding to the code. And now we are considering that as an official recommendation. So I hope that we will consider that and provide our feedback shortly. And at the Moscow Stock Exchange, there have been some changes, and the Moscow Stock Exchange group of companies also approved the code of conduct, ethical conduct. So the system now has been shaping, and we can see the outlines of that new system. So the principles that underpin the code and the global standards of the ethical conduct become fit into our overarching system with recommendations and guidelines. So I think that over the past, in the forthcoming 5 years, companies will switch to the principle-based assessment of companies' operations and activities, and that will be the trend for the forthcoming years. With respect to the questions on how we see the color of the market, with respect to the rules that are forming, the market has been changing. We're seeing more private individuals, retail investors. Just recall the Moore law. Annually, the number of processors per 1 unit of space doubles annually. So here in the Russian Federation, we also see the manifestation of that law. The individuals' number is doubling each year, and that has happened over the past 3 years. That has been the case. So I think that we'll have more interaction with the clients that are the freshmen, the novices at the market. So anyway, the number of new people flowing into the market, trying to find an alternative to the credit entities and banks is one thing. On the other hand, the indemnification share is quite high, and we should work with these categories as well. We should look at the principles that we should be sharing with them and across the board. So we just discussed what the ethics principles are and how they can be built upon our underpinnings. Apart from Clubhouse, another buzzword is the AI and AI-enabled systems. So the artificial intelligence and the ethics code have a lot in common. At least what your desired outcome is and what you currently have. And everything inside is a black box, both inside an individual, in his or her mind, and inside a social structure. So we still have to study this theory and have a better understanding of how to be properly, to build properly ethics for societies and for social groups. Currently, we have the ethics principles for separate people, individuals that want to have better returns, but accounting for the benefits of the ethics principles to a big number of clients is something that we have to achieve, and so our efforts in reaching out to them will be quite strenuous. So just 1 hour ago, this State Duma, which is Russian Parliament, approved the draft clause on the deals with the regulator. This will be a novelty at the Russian market as we expected. It will be quite hard, it will be quite difficult, like practical implementation thereof will be quite difficult. And I think we'll muddle through. It's not going to be easy. And, the principles of ethics matter, as this is going to be feasible only if the market participants will have confidence with the regulator. And when the regulator's conduct and behavior in terms of identifying and stemming the malconduct will be kind of in the overall framework of the principles of integrity that we all are going to share. It's going to be an overarching, uniform framework. So we are to come up with a brand new culture of acting with integrity. So when we acceded to that FX market code, we took our time and we had to do some housekeeping, some home assignment. All our staff members had to study and read that code and get to know what is behind each of the principles. So if your entities would be quite serious about accepting that code and understanding it and realizing its value, we'll pass it down for many generations to come. Thank you, Valery. Well, now with respect to education and training, we have been involved in that, and I know that you carried out an educational course for your employees. Dmitry will tell us how that was organized. And one of the decisions made by the committee, Moscow FX committee, not long ago, was as follows. We plan to hold straight after this event, probably during the month of June, we'll hold workshops and seminars following up on the experience we developed from our interaction with the Bank of Russia. It's going to be in Russian, and we will have our colleagues from ACI International will have an online webinar in English also. So wait for the announcements and get registered. If we have enough registrations, sufficient registrations, we will conduct the seminar. So how do you find this experience? It is anyway a positive experience, even if it seems to you that you spend your time, it hasn't been in vain. And different services participated. Different units of our organization participated in that seminar, in that effort and undertaking, both surveillance and other units. And, many other departments that wanted to know how to be able to provide education programs and do training with market participants. Those are the elements and principles of the integrity that we had to take up. So these elements will be applied broader. But anyway, any education, any training is useful. And the benefit will be obvious in the long run. With those restrictions and confines, you should not waste your time and benefit from these courses to up your value, personal value. Thank you, and the main goal of our promotion efforts to promote this code in Russia. I mean, the Moscow FX committee activities and routines is the work as part of the Global Forex Committee to update the global code. Now we're having a 3 years review. And the next question I'd ask Stephane Malrait, who is an ACI board member, an ACI FX committee chair, so that he could describe or probably give a bird's eye view on the latest developments of the routines of the Global Forex Committee, probably the key takeaways for the market, the main debated themes, questionable themes, or anything else that you consider important.
Give us
Stephane?
your impression, what is probably the main points, the main pain points of last 3-year review, which is going on right now under the umbrella of Global FX Committee, please.
Thank you, Sergey. Yes, so as you know, the Global Code exists already for 3 years, and there was a need to continue to review the evolution of the code. The FX market is well established, but what we see, and that was discussed, is it continue to evolve as well with different way of trading and different way to talk to clients or to trade with clients. So there was a need to be able to review the code and making sure all those principles were still valid. So this effort has started probably a year ago now with different working groups based on different subjects. Some of the key subjects that was reviewed were the disclosure of banks toward their clients, how we could try to unify the disclosure of the FX term of business that clients have between different banks. So this was one of the working group. Another working group was around the algorithmic trading and transaction cost analysis, and this is the one I co-chair with the Central Bank of Switzerland. And here we looked at, as you say, the evolution of the electronification of the FX market means that there is more algorithm going on than there were in the past, and some clients start to use those algorithms, but there was not too much standardization about the disclosure of those algorithms. So this is another point of development. The next point was a long discussion as well of the usage of last look and pre-hedging capabilities, and on that there is still a lot of effort being done to be able to explain how people can use last look in FX, but also how pre-hedging can work and should work. And a lot of those points there was a consultation being made to the wide industry. So it's not only a small group of people thinking about how we can involve the FX Global Code, but it's also involving the wide international community to make sure that people have a way to give their feedback and to include that feedback on the evolution of the code. So the first consultation about some of those like algo, TCA, disclosure, document, anonymous trading was another area of focus, closed a week ago, and now the feedback is received, and quite interesting feedback was received to the different working group to look at it. And now there is just a start of another demand for feedback on 2 subjects. One subject is last look, and the second subject is around pre-hedging. And on those is 2 documents we are going to sit next to the global code, but will not be included into the global code. So people who are interested about last look and who are interested about pre-hedging should look at the Global FXC website, download those papers, and send their feedback. The next step is going to be for those working groups to assess the feedback received, make some recommendation or some amendment in the proposal, and then the goal is to be able to launch the 3-year review of the code, the new version of the code, by the summer, in around July time frame. After that, we expect that people will have some time to implement those changes, to review those changes and implement them in their work practice going forward. One of the key goals as well from this 3-year review is to make sure the buy-side community get more engaged with the code of conduct. As you see, the first 3 years was mainly driven by the sell side, and the adherence of 1,000 signatories of the code is mainly on the sell side, but now the buy side is invited with those specific area of focus to take part of it and to adhere to the code. And we start to see an uptick in the buy side interest to the code, which is very promising indeed.
Thank you, Stephane. And by the way, we have a poll here. Can you launch, please, the next question to our auditorium, please? So I would like, in order to probably evaluate involvement of Russian community, ACI community, please answer the questions. Пожалуйста, можете ответить, кто прочитал?
Please, those of you who have read the recent documents that we sent out by mail, via our different information channels on the part of the Global FX Committee on the last look and pre-hedge practices. I'll echo Stephane saying that all the aspects of that review are of significance and importance. But you know, the guidance that was laid down by the Global Committee are indeed crucial, as they define how the business on the forex markets should be organized. It's relevant for the market makers and the buy and sell side also. Just read them up to the end, and probably you'll be able to earn more money for your entities, for your organizations. You will have a better knowledge of how to deal with the liquidity providers and how to up your value. For the sell side, it's going to be a condensed piece of expertise on how all of that should be done. So far, the penetration level is not considerable, although 20% is not a low figure. So please put the Zoom speakers back in the screen. And my next question would go to Senina, representing Refinitiv company, which is one of the companies that has been engaged quite actively in the initiatives mooted. Have you provided any feedback as a follow-up on these public consultations? Say a few words on that. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'll speak Russian. Thank you very much for your question. And definitely we provided our feedback. But most importantly, I want to say that when we interact, we say that we represent Refinitiv, and it is common knowledge that LCA Group acquired Refinitiv and now have the data provision tools, analysts, liquidity, and post-trade units, providing the maximum value for the clients who provide all the feedback with respect to the global code on the part of the LSE group of companies, London Stock Exchange. So we're now part of the LSE group. But anyway, we are supportive of that global code. Refinitiv subscribed to the global code in June 2017. The London Exchange Clearinghouse followed suit in July 2018, and since then we have been attending, and we are supportive of the reviews, and we cannot be a side observer with respect to the changes. I will now go point by point, describing what was done. But anyway, we are supportive of the update of the code, and it should be in conformity with the change of circumstances at the market and the new developments. LC is supportive of the idea that the templates allow to make this principle-based code more feasible for us, to make it a ready tool for market participants, banks and platforms, so that they can utilize that. But FX Global Code should still remain a set of principles that we are all guided. It shouldn't be a set of rules, it should be a set of principles. And the market participants should make their own decisions on how they comply with the principles, what specific action they take to comply with the principles. So our specific feedback would be probably we should start with the baseline templates, and we should start implementing these, put them into practice, and would expand afterwards. And it should not be kind of an indicative thing, but it should not be a theoretical thing. We should put together market participants and receive the feedback, the live feedback from them. We should be in contact, uninterrupted contact with the market participants. If we speak about disclosures on markets and platforms, we are fully supportive of the need to disclose information on the principles and tools and other things. And we believe it would be wiser to focus on the current or potential platform participants. And the most intricate issue, as we consider as a platform host or organizer, is the pre-transaction disclosure of the tag on whether a counterparty is a signatory to the code and whether they stated their commitment or not. With the hindsight of our 10 years of expertise, we can say that we do not think there will be a conflict for the market participants as a result of that, because the counterparty or the price dilemma, and we think that that will bring about a lot of red tape and procedural efforts. So probably it is now too early to implement that, and we should instead, at this point, focus on different things that also were mentioned among the proposals, and that will be much easier to implement and apply. I could talk at length and be prolific and profuse, but our platform fully discloses all the feedback, and I will send it to Sergey and all the organizers. You'll be able to read our feedback on all the points with specific wording. And let me yield over to the next speaker. Thank you, Anna. It was a very useful comment and statement by you, an announcement. We'll be able to use that at our next joint FX Market Committee on the 26th of May. And we'll be able to use that session and the drafts of your feedback and response to shape our position better. Dmitry, over to you in a nutshell. Can you tell us a quick word about your experience of interacting with the WG, and probably a pain point that merits discussion, and we should draw attention to that. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Sergey, indeed, I was part of the working group on anonymous trade of the Global Committee, not as active as other members. I represent Morex, and this is an anonymous platform, but we believe it is important for us to take part in it. So we discussed some of the issues were raised, and there's a lot of overlapping with the disclosure working group in terms of data sharing and policies in tag management policies. One of the questions raised was that those who work through prime brokers need the so-called cross-venue credit check, managing their credit limits in live mode, in pre-trade, when they work in different venues. And the Global Committee would like to change electronic platforms to FX venues as a broader language for those organizations. It could be an exchange to ECN. It could be some big tech that provide, or fintech that provide aggregation services in FX market. Now, Anna raised one of the issues. Participants need to know which of their counterparties joined the global code. This is essential. Ever since the code was launched, we received requests from our international clients on what is the position of MOEX, and MOEX was the first one to issue the statement of commitment in 2018. We published that statement. It was extremely important for our customers. We now know that those market participants that are committed to the code issued such a statement, and these companies are more positively viewed at the level of compliance or in overall credit risks or counterparty risks, because they are perceived to be more transparent. I agree that the code principles are very much high level, and currently the debate is on how much should we drill down in terms of last look and pre-hedge. So there are different divergent positions. At the Russian FX Standing Committee, we discussed this issue. We submitted our consolidated position as a response to the request for feedback issued by the Global Committee, and we talked about the template for FX venues. We fully support it. It's a standard template for disclosures for different FX venues. We are ready to fully disclose this information, and MOEX does that, including all levels of information, starting from the level of anonymity to all the rules. You can find it on our website. Last look, whether we have it or not. Actually, we don't use last look. And also, we submitted our suggestions. We were part of that work, and I'm happy that we've been part of these deliberations, and I hope that we'll be able to provide our feedback for the 3-year review that's been requested by the Global Committee. We'll do it next week. Now, as I look back at the issues raised, I believe last look. Last look is something that's been heavily discussed here at the committee level. There are different opinions. The professional community, particularly the buy side, is looking for more details, more guidance in terms of what practices should be used, what practices are acceptable, which could be tolerated, and where we should have zero tolerance. Last look, spread, and transaction cost. That's it from me. Thank you, Dmitry. Now I'd like to give the floor to Svante Hedin.
Svante, please, could you share, so your understanding and probably expertise as a member of Scandinavian FX Committee and the Global FX Committee. So, what is, in your opinion, probably most important things we need to pay attention to? And so, what is your opinion about maybe last papers, precisely last look or pre-hedge, if you have something to deliver to auditorium today for those topics? Because, it's quite controversial. We see that discussion if the principle should be rewritten or not. And so please, what is your opinion? So what we shall do, and probably what is the most important for FX community to pay attention to in those papers.
Okay, well, thank you, Sergey, and thank you, I guess, for the opportunity as well to be here. And I wish I could be there in person, but this will have to do it. And my Russian is very poor, so I'll keep this in English. I know that you gave me the choice earlier.
Okay, we have help of our translators.
Just to your question, I'm here. I guess I'm here with multiple hats. I'm as you put it, I'm a member of the Global Committee, and I'm also responsible for FX as a business within the bank that I work for, ACB. So been involved in ACI in the past as well. So I'm kind of in a way wearing all those hats, and I can therefore answer your question in different ways as well. I guess on the sort of more broad point of GFXC, I could talk to a number of these topics. We probably don't have time to cover all of it. So to your point, Dan, on you highlighted two in particular, I guess the current consultation papers around last look at pre-hedging. What I will say there is, I think, as has already been mentioned now once or twice, that of course the code set out from the very outset to be principle based, and I think that was actually the only way that it could be done, given the extremely ambitious goal to write effectively the one code to cover all aspects and parts and nuances of the largest market in the world, which is truly global, and one which is relevant to all types of market participants in that market, irrespective of size or function in the market. So that's, of course, an extremely ambitious goal, and one that I would argue, although biased, of course, but I would argue that we pulled off. And now that we're in this 3-year period, 3 years in, we have the opportunity to look at it and as Stephane said, look at what may need adjusting, if anything, to make sure that it is still relevant, but also, and now I'm coming to your question, Sergey, also to perhaps fill out or flesh out in some of the areas that the code couldn't or wouldn't go into at sufficient level of detail 3 years ago, right? Either by making amendments to the code or to publish additional papers or discussion material into the public domain to complement the code in effect. And here is the $1 million question, right? To what extent do we keep all that high level and principle based? And where do we need to zoom in and become more specific? And if you want, maybe even more prescriptive, to give the market the guidance that it seeks and needs, whereas at the same time keeping it relevant for everything and everyone, right? It's a really, really hard balancing act. And this is something that the GFXC debates and discusses a lot. It's something that the working groups work with a lot in their work on these papers. And if you ask for my personal view, which I think you did, and this is not GFXC, this is Svante Hedin and I guess SEB speaking, I think personally, I think the last look paper in its current form is probably leaning towards being too broad. and could perhaps become a little bit more specific, and we could perhaps add a bit more detail and a bit more teeth to that paper in its current form. Whereas the pre-hedging paper, on the other hand, is actually quite detailed and quite technical. I think that's a good thing because that sort of creates content, right? That the industry can do something with. The important thing then, of course, is to make sure that all of that detail is correct and relevant, right? And also that it captures the right details. I personally think it probably does, but I would be, again, echoing some of the previous speakers. I would really encourage everyone who has any sort of interest in any of this to read these papers and submit their own views and feedback back to the committees for review. It's a fantastic opportunity to do so right now, and one that's not going to come back in the same way once these papers are effectively finalized and published, right? So that's for the sake of time, that's probably in as far as and as much as time as I have on that particular topic, Sergey. But I'm quite happy to go into any other aspects of it or anything that you would like.
Thank you, Svante, and I'd like to see if we have any questions from auditorium. Скажите, у нас есть ли какие-то вопросы?
Do we have any questions from the room? To Svante, you can ask any question to our panelists. We have 5 minutes till the end of this panel, so we can use this opportunity to make it more interactive. Good afternoon. I'd like to put a question to Valery Lyakh on misconduct. There is too little information on types of misconduct. We need more analysis so that we are on the same page. What practices are considered to be non-bona fide by the central bank, and what kind of legal precedents we have. And also, when we talk about ethics, that's just half of the issue, because we should also talk about ethics in our regulators. Because very often we hear that some banks are stripped of their licenses, assets were taken out of the country, and nothing follows. So it seems that the central bank doesn't lack the will to review these stories. What kind of lessons have you learned? What kind of preventive measures will be taken going forward? Because we have an impression that, okay, yes, millions were stolen, so what's the buzz, you know? Nothing doing, no point in talking about that. Okay, 2 issues: sharing more information, adding more granularity to types of misconduct. Well, Sergey, do you want us to talk about that on Clubhouse? Okay. Well, we're moving to it gradually. You can't do it overnight. The central bank cannot change its policies and practices overnight. If you look back 10 years ago, take a look at the law on inside information. Initially, there was just 1 paragraph on misconduct, and it was 2/3 were just a revision of rehashing of some laws, and then the 1/3 was on the list of organizations. Currently, in our press releases, we try to disclose as much information on the essence of those malpractices. So we provide more information about these practices and provide our perspective. I know we can go into extremes, And we can also disclose the certificate of the inspection, and the FCA in the UK does that. Is the market community here in Russia ready for it? Are we ready for that level of transparency that could be a role model for in other countries? I'm not sure. Some believe that's the way forward, but the rest could be a little bit confused or embarrassed. So we need to work together with the market participants. We need to build that ethics level together. We need to make sure that those entities do not lose their reputation, don't lose their face. So definitely try to disclose as many practices as possible, malpractices, but we will do it gradually. So to make sure that the market is ready for it. We know that time has come for it, and our language will be pursued by the compliance units at those organizations and the organizations themselves as normal practice. I mean, the fact that we publish it would be considered as normal practice and not an attempt to shut down or crack down on some operations, types of trading. There were instances when some of the compliance controllers banned some of the trading practices at certain banks following our guidance. Actually, we just, cautioned against some aspects of those trading practices, but those controllers just were completely afraid and shut down all the practices. The second one was about your sour impression about malpractices at regulators. Well, that's what I talk about, the plea with the regulator bill. So if that bill is passed into law, it will take effect from January the 1st, 2022, and it will be really a pain for us, because the market should trust us and feel that this plea will be used to preserve the integrity of the market and not to punish everyone as much as possible. We need to retain that credibility. Well, we know there are some we heard some manipulation stories, shares of Lukoil shares, etc. Yes, we try to provide as much information as possible. Again, as much as possible under Russian law. The law places certain restrictions, and that was done on purpose. That law has been in place for 10 years, and we currently feel the language was really good and proper, and that has helped to keep the framework, the markets, the relationships robust and sustainable. So we hope that lawmakers will give us an opportunity to share more information, but again, not at the expense of the reputation in the market. We don't want our messages to be misinterpreted, to be viewed as bans. So sometimes we provide our perspective on some cases, but that perspective could be perceived as a ban, but that's not like this. So we do investigation into many cases, and if it's we will only say this is manipulation if we have 100% evidence. Sometimes if we can't prove it, well, we can only comment on it. If we cannot fight for this case in court, then we will not do it. If we publicize information about a certain legal entity, then we will definitely reduce the reputation of that legal entity to zero. And even if they protect it in court, defend it in court, they won't be able to bring their reputation back. Well, I regularly get from the compliance of MOEX questions on why non-standard deals have been completed. They are actually standard market deals, but we get a lot of messages from compliance officers. Well, we're trying to fine-tune our relationship with the market, our dialogue with the market. We don't want to be too private. We don't want to force it on the market participants, but we want to have more dialogue. We want market participants to explain to us why they believe it is a standard practice, and that would help us to just close the case. Sometimes the market participants are just afraid. We want everyone not to be afraid. Well, maybe we can explain it on Clubhouse. That's it. Thank you, Valery. We would like to thank all the panelists and the guests, and we now move to our next panel. And please give them a round of applause. We now move to the last panel, and after that we'll have a cocktail party, we'll be able to network, to chat, and now I would like to invite Igor Marich, Managing Director for Sales and Business Development, Board Member of MOEX. Then Salim Agarzaev, Deputy Chairman of the Management Board, Head of Treasury of Metallinvestbank. And Anna Senina. She's joined us from the previous panel. She represents Refinitiv. We have three sponsors, MOEX, Refinitiv, and Metallinvestbank. We'd like to thank those sponsors for staging this event. Let's go straight into business. Igor, let's start with you. MOEX has become almost the entire market recently. Yes, can you bring up the slides? Let's start with it to set the tone. So what are the latest trends? What's happening in the markets, money markets and the derivatives market? Yes, since we are the only thing that stands between the people and the cocktail party, I'll try to be brief. So, talking of trends, just a couple of slides. I hope it will not last long. I'd like to give our perspective on the trends. That's for the Russian exchange infrastructure, but they are largely global. For a second year running, we've been saying that the market has been very much driven by an inflow of retail customers, the stock market, and not only that. Those retail customers are everywhere in the FX market too. They're playing an increasingly bigger role. The number of active clients are growing. We are nearing 12 million. Only a couple of years ago, it seemed to be an impossible figure. And 4 million individual investment accounts. One of the key drivers. And that continues to attract our customers. So what do? We do a lot for retail customers. There are a lot of new instruments that we always add, global benchmarks, that allow them to trade globally through the local platform. And we're also extended working hours to 7 a.m., from 7 a.m. and much more. And we're also seeing a trend for more platforms. That's a global trend. And again, we are not the only platform that's been traditionally viewed as an exchange. We also have a marketplace that's called financial services. We also work with corporates. We are having a bigger network, and we provide more and more services, OTC services, and largely for the FX market. Also, despite the geopolitical pressure, we're still seeing a lot of activity from foreign investors. We saw some outflow from our sovereign bonds, but they are coming back. In terms of the trade volume, they are still the same. Actually, they've been up. And last but not least, ESG has become mainstream. Everyone's been talking about it, the regulator and all the market participants. And it's not just talk, but we've been taking some steps in this area. ESG has been particularly important in bonds. We now have a sustainability section in MOEX. We just had about 15 bonds worth 51 billion rubles, but now we're seeing sub-federal issuers. Moscow, as an entity, will issue the first green bonds. Thanks to the central bank, we've amended the listing rules, and now there are some criteria for sub-federal issuers so that they could do something good for sustainable development, raising money for these projects. And it's not the only success story. As the exchange, we've issued an ESG report. We are now part of some rankings. And we have added more products so that our investors could invest into it. I'm talking about mutual investment funds, ETFs, that focus on bonds and stocks. And we also launched trading in the stock market and FX markets, early trading between 7 to 10 a.m. You're aware of that story. Not everyone was optimistic, but we've been impressed with the results. Actually, the market overperformed. We're seeing that we have higher volumes, between 5 to 10%, depending on the instrument, whether it's the derivatives or the FX market. We're seeing demand to make sure that we introduce the same working hours in the stock market. So we initially planned to do it next year, but we've rolled it back. We'll launch this practice this year. So when will we start? When will we have 4 a.m.? Actually, when we launched the 7 a.m. hours, we launched a briefing. Actually, it was not me who lobbied for that. It was it was Konstantin Sarazov, representative of Открытие, and Vladimir Potapov. Vladimir said, well, we're ready, let's do it. I think we need to get ready. I'm more cautious. So 4 a.m., we're not ready for that. Well, we can train the robots, trade the algos. Yeah, they need to stay awake. So why do we do this early trading? Well, why do we need this early trading session? Again, that's important for Asian clients. We're seeing huge interest to derivatives and stock market instruments from the Asian markets, from Singapore, Hong Kong, India, and Russian customers from Siberia, from Russia's Far East, and anyone who would like to trade early in the morning before they go to work. So actually, we have a lot of customers, and it's the share of customers, retail customers, even high during the regular sessions. Now, on the key segments, FX, money markets, and derivatives. So what do we see in the FX? Last year was extremely strong. We managed to increase the share and the volume. And this year we are seeing this trend to continue, particularly in spot. Well, liquidity is now somewhat lower in May, but the number of active clients is growing. So what have we done? We saw some strong performance from new services and products that were launched on MOEX. That's our order book. Now, if you look at globally at these services, the first algo order, TWAP, well, everything seems to be working fine. These segments have been growing steadily better than other segments. We're seeing retail customers and corporates who are and who've been even more interested in it. We also purchased NTP Pro. We purchased a stake in it and would like to offer some synergy with NTC. So we'll have a pilot with it, the pilot platform. So those OTC deals could be used by those services like the central clearing counterparty. What else?
We can also consider something like Russian CLS, and we could talk about the OTC transactions, multilateral clearing, multi-counterparty clearing. So we probably will invent something. And as regards links, it is another global topic. We are in interaction with Kazakhstan. We have installed all our instruments and trading systems at their stock exchange, and kind of we are linking our markets. And we have good projects to expand at gold markets. It has increased several-fold, much more than other segments. It had a low base. And anyway, we will go eastwards and westwards. We'll have a link with the LSC and with the Shanghai Stock Exchange and Commodity Exchange. And now we have the brokers and the gold producers being involved and engaged. So the link, if we talk about Shanghai, it is about the trade and clearing link. And we need more liquidity providers from London. Now you can also trade FX products at the global market price, and in future we'll also be able to trade gold. With derivatives, it's quite obvious and transparent. The open positions and the volumes increased with the traded derivatives and the FX interest segment and OTC derivatives. Also, with respect to SP standardized derivatives, derivative contracts, we also advance on that as the centralized clearing is coming. And those banks with forex derivatives provide liquidity and prices, and that gives rise to new business. As it regards the traded derivatives markets, it's kind of blue ocean, as you can pursue a lot of interesting undertakings. We have been adding new tools, global ones. We will launch the S&P 500 futures with ITF and SPIDER, and we'll be able to offer another tool to our participants that want to trade global tools and instruments. And the real estate futures and other futures on real estate index will be launched by us together with Sberbank and DomClick.com. And you've been discussing that for quite long. You've been mooting that for long. Well, it's not that we launched that, but together with DomClick.com, we launched that, and to see whether it's operational, we had to test it, and we think it's quite feasible and workable. And last year we launched it, and we piloted that, and now we will launch futures on that in 2021. It's going to be a brand new product, quite an exotic one. And we are seeing now that the unit funds have been expanding at market, and the real estate instruments gain in popularity. So we hope that this future, will be quite an interesting offer. We have launched the strategic matching of the calendar spreads at futures and derivatives markets. I think it is a technologically sophisticated project, having good prospects. We will be able to up liquidity and provide more opportunities to trade at derivatives markets. And we have the desire to launch the options strategy, like the stock options, shares options. We have been discussing that among within community for long. I think now time is high, and the money market is the biggest of our segments. In that we have surpassed the 5 trillion rubles of open positions as a milestone in repo deals, including the central counterparty deals and the repo with the clearing participation certificates. Also has been on the rise. It's the best value-added product that we can offer to the market. It is the foundation for Rusfa, and this rate performs well. I think it is representative of the money market. Today we had a debate during that NFA expert council on what has been happening with rates, and everybody has been sticking to most prime. All of them are prudent and conservative. Not all of them. Well, we have something apart from that. Well, everybody's perceiving Rusfa with a grain of salt, and and talks about promoting that face, a very reserved attitude. But if you look at the number of participants working with that, I think it's quite promising. It is an interesting indicator. We will back that. We're supportive. We are not conservatives to the backbone. We're not retrogrades. We're not stick in the mud people, so we'll do a lot for the money market. And this segment has become a key transmission mechanism to allow big and small bags of money, including the authorities and governmental bodies, to be able to place their funds, and the market participants could capitalize on that and use that and tap into that. We have a lot of operations with Federal Treasury. The Financial Committee is now in St. Pete, and we expect more liquidity providers. So it's quite interesting. And I think that the A4 regulation change that is coming in the fourth quarter, since the 1st of October, how it will impact the market. But that will not be a step change for the market, I think. So in a nutshell, that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I hope I didn't abuse your attention. Celine has already picked the mic. So I know that you know a lot about the money market, Celine. I'll try to be even shorter than Igor. Thank you for the presentation. Good evening, colleagues. Many thanks to the Moscow Stock Exchange, MOEX. You have contributed a lot to the money market development. We can hardly overstate your contribution. Like Rusfar rate is what we use in our internal pricing, as we believe it reflects accurately the real value and the baseline risks. It's kind of reference indicator benchmark, and all others have their pros and cons. But for small entities, what is of importance is to reduce the baseline risks so that this indicator would reflect the capability of banks to attract and place funds and money. So the stock exchange wants to work with at the last mile segment, working with the end clients, and probably it has become a rival to banks to a certain extent, but at the same time they provide a level playing field between us and big banks, because with respect to the availability and affordability of the instruments, thanks to the repo market, we can be at par with different banks of popular colors. With respect to value, it's easier for us to compete. So the money market is the most important. It is the backbone, the foundation of the financial system. And the central bank has been paying a lot of heed to shape the short-term rates framework, and they have developed the targeting toolkit. It is quite sophisticated. We can see that the short-term rates are under pressure, and the liquidity management is performed jointly by the central bank and the finance ministry. We're seeing some of the advantages with respect to the predictability of the interest rates and liquidity projections. When we look at the long-term rates market, we are seeing a different picture, and that reflects and translates into the fact that the market of interest derivatives has been undergoing development and evolution, but it lags behind. It trails other instruments. I regret we don't have the finance ministry representatives attending, because I would like to tell them that the finance ministry should have a closer look at things, and Minfin has become an important, big borrower. We have seen that the value of the funds that they attract at the money market have gone considerably up, and they have started providing the framework of the long-term interest rates, and they are quite pronounced at the market now. And this consumer attitude is unacceptable, and this year an explosion attempt with interest rates happened worldwide, and after the failed auction of the U.S. Treasury with respect to 7-year Treasury bonds, it was obvious that the U.S. Treasury wasn't willing to engage in active dialogue in order to rectify things, which is a proper thing to do, because the interest rates market is of significance, and we have had a lot of loans accumulated, and now we're looking at the federal loan bonds market that has been implementing the Basel requirements, and as part of that requirements, the federal loan bonds are the foundation of the financial system. They provide the liquidity, and the liquidity is a risk. Is a tail risk. It would be a tail risk for the banking system, a critical risk. So it is a very important aspect for the banking system, and the regulator obliges banks to have a big chunk of the federal loan bonds on their portfolios. And in the first 3 quarters this year, despite the fact that the non-residents have remained active, but they turned into sellers instead of the buyers. They're now on the sell side, and the finance ministry fell short of changing their policies and the market approach, provoking a high degree of volatility. And the market should not definitely reject or decline to assume the interest risks. But the high volatility of long-term interest rates would entail to a cyclical situation, because the growing rates and the high volatility would give rise to toxic assets. Like the banks will have to invest more in the federal loan bonds to comply with the short-term liquidity requirements of Basel, and at the same time it kind of a forced asset. They're obliged to have it, and with its high volatility it may become toxic for the banks on their books. And there are several pillars of the Russian banking system, and our financial system, and the banking system is one of the main pillars. And the individuals, the retail clients' share is growing, but it's no more than 1%. Well, I think it's 4%, and not long ago it was 1.1% stake. Well, I'm not referring to trading, but to holding. Now, even with corporate bonds, their stake was 30% last year, in the first quarter of this year, and 20% last year. It is the trading share. As regards the stocks, the shares and derivatives, it was around 40%. So the ownership goes up. So previously we had 3 trillion on the broker accounts, and trust management accounts, and now we have 6 trillion rubles, which is a big amount of money. Yes, this is owned by the retail clients, individuals, and we had, well, the bulk of that was purchased and acquired by banks. They had to, and the finance ministry had to shape the structure of the long-term rates. And you wanted to say a quick word on the mortgage-backed securities, and a new type of the mortgage-backed securities emerged at the market and worldwide. And the benchmark market here is the United States, and they rank quite high. They have the top role with banks. They have 15 to 19% of mortgage-backed securities on their books. It has a premium over the federal loan bonds. In this country, this premium is quite high. And them bonds are a perfect tool to attract liquidity to the market. And the end-to-end mortgage-backed securities by the single agent DOM.IF couldn't boast of the market liquidity. They had decent credit quality, but in terms of the liquidity and the role of a refinancing instrument, they were not considered as a proper pertinent asset. And thanks to the stock exchange, starting with February, the Federal Treasury launched repo transactions with the mortgage-backed securities of basket by DOM.IF, and they are part of the transactions with the central counterparty, repo deals, and we also expect that to be in the clearing participation certificate transactions segment, and that will become a brand new class of assets that will second the federal loan bonds and will bring in a lot of dividends to us, the market participants, and the trading organizers, the stock exchanges and venues, and that will curb and reduce our risks, like having some margin on top of the federal loan bonds is kind of protection or hedging against the interest risks, which is important for banks at this juncture when the rates are low and it is hard to find a hedging instrument. We have been sharing this positive and upbeat look at the mortgage-backed securities, and we have been doing a lot. I mean, the DOM.IF and us also have been doing a lot to develop that segment. And those securities are now part of the roster, and the haircut has been improved. And there is a wide range of securities with the decent risk parameters, and they are accepted at the clearing participation certificate procedure. So, like the central counterparty would take as collateral those securities that comply with the maximum liquidity requirements only. I know that for sure we have been discussing that for a long while with DOM.IF. They know what is to be done to raise the liquidity of the market and to make those securities fit for being used as collateral, as pledge. And now let me give the floor to Anna Senina, representing a foreign stock exchange. Refinitiv is now part of the LSE group. So Anna, what's the news? What new offering you have for the clients? You have around 7 minutes, no more. Please be confined. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. I had prepared around 150 slides for you, and I'll try to quickly tell you about the trends and developments that we observe. You know, I will echo what Selim and Igor have stated. The market is quite sophisticated, and many things that are typical at the Russian market are still perceived as some novel developments for foreign markets, for other overseas markets. I hope you are seeing my screen, and I want to tell you that the trend that we are witnessing at the global financial markets is that all the surveys from JP Morgan and others indicate and point to the fact that in 2020 traders would switch to the electronic formats and go digital, and they are not going to revert. 21% have been saying that they will have things differently, and more than 55% or more than 50% will use algorithms. And the algo trade would result in the growth of the trading volume by 15%. This is the general expectation, and around 50% of the participants will use the leverage. So they will adapt a hybrid model of operation. And now we're seeing lots of trends, several trends. Now, the IT infrastructure is not always up to our expectations. The risk has occurred. We've always had that, and like last year. And now what is needed is to become more transparent and visible to keep operating. The market has become more intricate, more thinly veiled. It also has become more volatile. Its volatility increased. Another curious trend of the year 2020, is that there has been an inflow of new participants. I'm not referring to retail and clients and individuals, which is typical for the Russian market with a low interest rate environment, but you know, a lot of buy sides arrived at the market. A lot of buy-side entities with low volumes arrived, and that gave rise to the reduction of the lot's value. Like small-sized retail clients would trade low volumes, and second is that the buy-side clients start or embrace the automation. Previously, that was kind of entertainment or a toy for majors, and now it has become a scaled-up market solution. Even small-sized clients automate and become to make their own reckonings and calculations, becoming the full-fledged participants of the market. And one of the trends that we observe is that the spreads have become narrower, and the most interesting point mentioned by Igor, and that was echoed by banks during surveys, is that they those earlier sessions, they provide many more instruments and tools for the market participants, because now it has become a much more agile market, and this is typical for our market as well. And those trends translate in a set of new issues and problems for the market participants. They give rise to new problems, like any market participants wants to remain profitable, and for that sake, they have to reduce the trading costs and minimize their reliance on counterparties. As the volatility is high, and they should be in compliance with the new norms. And the requirements to the resilience of IT and technical systems have been raised, and even small-sized participants, small-scale participants, should become more savvy about knowing where the liquidity lies at the markets. And now we have the new FX aggregator, which is a brand new solution of ours. It is a novel technology. We had an FX aggregator in the past, another make of that was developed for a lot of market participants, and they had to tune and fine-tune it on their own. And this one is a much more user-friendly, aiming at a wide range of participants. It allows you to connect to different sources of liquidity, both domestic and international. And for us, it is important to be able to tap into the liquidity of the Moscow Stock Exchange.
In any case, you have one aggregator and you can work with our exchange, our sources, like initial matching, relationship liquidity, and third-party liquidity, fast match, for example. So you can connect to a plethora of participants. And it's really easy. It's fully hosted on our side, and participants can save on the IT costs, backup costs, resilience costs. Since it's all on our side, we do the matching our own, and the adapter for Marich is on our side. We support it fully ourselves. So what is the key trend of this year? So what is the value of an aggregator? They need to provide access to all liquidity pools. For example, a bank. You get it through a single bank portal or through elsewhere. But an aggregator of the 21st century, of the 21st year of the 21st century, needs to pool liquidity from all the sources. I don't want to read everything out. You have to do much more. You need to be able to find new liquidity through the prime broker. And you can get access to a much broader liquidity pool, a much broader pool of liquidity providers. And second, the system needs to be able to find the best liquidity during the day. We have an app called FX Heat, and it shows you for which FX pair you have the best liquidity at which hour. So during the European working hours, this system works best. So perhaps you need to focus on it. So aggregators need to be able to put those facts visible in a visible way. And the third trend that has emerged with the small slots, that's the new aggregator. The new aggregator has to help you with the distribution of the slots, distribution of your foreign funds across the venues. We've introduced two innovations. That's unprecedented. First, we now have matching for euro, dollar, and pound. Pound, dollar, and yen. And we have lots for 1 million, and we have lots for 100,000. So it's a new segment who are not ready to buy or sell 1 million. So that's an innovation from just a couple of weeks ago. And second, we need to study whether this decrease in the size of the lot will have an impact on your revenue. So this relationship trading could help you to see the outcome. The screenshot to the left shows you that currently the LSE trading platforms are the biggest in the world. So currently our terminal gives you the opportunity to find the best prices. And for those prices, you can see the spreads for 1 million, 10 million, 5 million. And it's very important for you to see what are the most comfortable prices for you for a particular lot. So that's for FX, but it could also be reproduced for other segments too. So algos need to be there in the market. Every aggregator should have it, and many platforms believe in algorithms. We can use between 3 to 5 algorithms for most of the participants. The more algorithms you provide, the better and the more appealing it is for the participants. That's a brand new solution. It's part of the desktop solution. That's it from me, Sergey. For us, the trend of the year is aggregation. You cannot win if you don't have it. That's my brief overview. Thank you. It really looks smart and sexy. I'm sure that the new lineup of Refinitiv will be very popular. Exciting figures on FX. So our panel is coming to an end. I hope we have an opportunity to see everyone. Thank you, Anna. Let's give all the panelists a round of applause. Just one small item. Daria Darganova will make a short announcement. She's been a long-time member of ACI Russia. She is from Bloomberg. Daria, are you online? Unfortunately, she could not make it due to well-known reasons. The UK is unavailable for us at the moment. We can't see her online, I'm sorry. We can't see her on Zoom. So Daria Derganova wanted to make this announcement herself. We can bring her on the screen. Hi. Hi there, colleagues. Can you hear me? Yes, you look really great. Yes, over to you. Our final session is over. We can actually start drinking wine. Thank you, Sergey. It's been really great to listen to all the panelists. I'd like to thank all the sponsors. I'd like to thank you for this long-time cooperation. I'd like to thank you, Sergey, and all the other participants, and make a short announcement. It's really sad for me. I'm moving away from the Russian market. I stay in Bloomberg, but I will be in charge of other regions and other products. So Russia will no longer be a market for me. But my colleague Zarema will be the new representative of Bloomberg in Russia. Please welcome her. I agree with Anna and Salim and Igor. Bloomberg will continue to focus on automation, transaction cost analysis, and algo trading as the key trends, and I hope that Zarema will be your trusted partner. Well, I hope that in October Zarema will come to a EFX summit, and we could welcome you to the summit too in your new position. All the best in your career. Zarema is not online, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Thank you, that's it. And we now move to the most exciting, desirable part